So, on my ethics, we have a power of struggle, a struggle of power, what have you. In the end, that power belongs to whoever holds it, whoever sees it. And then again, we come to the conclusion that everything is together as one, Tao. But is that true? Tao alone would say that we are one with everything, as I explained, being one with everything in so many words. But in my opinion, or in my ethics, I would see that there is a level of superiority which is granted forth in the darkness, and by nature of authors that have spoken of this before. And that is the level of the soul. And the level of the soul is, for me, something that is what becomes occult and or esoteric in nature. The creator of birth or of idea gives you status. So when you exemplify something like this, you show a source of knowledge, and that source of knowledge is then your status. To keep that status, you must have an object like my own. And the object like my own is then used back forth again to refer to the same shit that I've been talking about. And then you're saying the same shit. Oh my god. If you're understanding what I'm saying, you would know that that is the shit. Because if that is the shit, that is me saying I am greater, which I am actually not. But in the same connotation, I am not greater because of the elements that have created those symbiotic relationships amongst other individuals. And those symbiotic relationships amongst other individuals are resonant. Though they may not understand them, they are resonant in their minds, and they are used and expressed through expression of what I would call my forms. So every individual has the forms within them. So every individual has that power to create a memory, to see a concept, to understand an idea. And to understand an idea, we then level ourselves again, and then we can come back down to earth from the heavens of the philosopher kings, and we say, well, maybe I do not see the forms. Maybe I just see enlightenment. And when I see enlightenment, how do I respond to it? Well, you respond to it with art. You respond to it with aesthetics. As with my ethics, it's aesthetically based. At the pillars of philosophy, aesthetics reaches its limits. And to say at the pillars of aesthetics, philosophy reaches its limits. They are combations of truth in each other. And these combations of truth in each other are very hard to distinguish when it comes down to the true nature of what is reality, the true painter of the stars. And that would bring forth a whole nother crowd of people saying no and yes, and this argument about the creator of the stars. But when it comes down to it, is it the creator of the stars that matters, or the stars themselves? As I had quoted in a poetry to Justin, you could read it and then I'll speak about it because I would rather other people see my medium. I talked about the nature of Earth, and the nature of Earth has an existence to it. So we have to be, in fact, binded to something if there is this relationship of the cave. And the relationship of the cave, for me, is also the relationship of a mother and a father. And to have a mother and a father, we must have life and death, which is then again related to some other issues I talked about. And those other issues I talked about of life and death are proof of some existence that is outside of our comprehension. Whether you like it or not, that existence which is outside of our comprehension is there. And I don't even know how I prove that in this moment, but it is there. As with the Tao, everything is now, and I've explained this over again, and I will explain it again, in thereof we have the concept of what the fuck is going on. And what the fuck is going on is everything. So what happens after we die? That question is not for me to answer. That question is for us to answer as individuals. No, as a people. We need to answer that question as a people before we can go further into explanationing, whatever you want to call it, what it is, that thing that I'm not going to talk about, the stakes that I'm using in this argument, the nails that have been brought forth in this argument again and again and again. Because if we don't have something like that, if we don't have something to bind us back to ourselves, then we are left alone. And to be left alone would be not the role of a true father. So a true father, ethically, since this was supposed to be an ethical conversation, a true father ethically would send a mother or send himself to earth. And through the birth of Jesus Christ, which I said I would not speak of, but I am speaking of him now. So my inclinations towards Jesus Christ are, in fact, rooted in tattoo form, and they're also rooted in, and then again I'm getting back with sentiment value, but they were rooted in my argument because of the true nature of what Jesus Christ actually is, ethically. Power struggle could also combat Jesus Christ, though. So, power struggle would say that souls have more power than other souls. If Jesus did not exist, then there would be a power struggle. Now, how is that power struggle existent if Jesus Christ did not exist? Well, that power struggle is existent because there is no God. There is no one higher. If there was no one higher, there must be a highest. And that highest has limitations as well. So, if we look at it in this light, we have bar graphs. The bar graphs never reach off the charts, which we would call God, off the charts. But the bar graph, in fact, leads to different levels and different scales at different ranks, and those different scales at different ranks would not need a Jesus Christ figure. So you could take that argument and say that, well, I am greater than another individual, or you could take the argument, and I'm kind of in modelly ground, and this is the way these arguments kind of work, is when I'm talking about something, or when others are talking about something, which are basically the same thing in my opinion, it's, in the end, well, if I say it's the same thing, I'm believing in a God, right? But in the end, I see that love is a fraction of a God, that these things are fractions of a God. So, to be fractions of a God, we must have some kind of relational activity, back to the 7 pillars, or the 7, well, not pillars, there's only 4 pillars, but the 7 seals. And the 7 seals, I don't know about again, but I'm just speaking of the Bible, and the 7 things of the Green Lantern Corps. So, those things, they're all good. There is no pain in any of those. There is no anguish in any of those. And how is that? Why is that? There is only anguish in death itself. So, those who would say the Green Lantern philosophy is abstract, they're right. Those who would say that it's dumb, they're wrong. Because death itself is pain. Pain is the death of something. Cellular forms, when you kill them, they feel pain, or they cease to exist. They don't cease to exist, in my opinion, or what I think, is when they start to die, is when they know they're done. And when they're starting to die, and they know they're done, is when basically things start to feel pain. So, death is akin to pain. And so, when we die, we're done, or we go to heaven. And so that's why people say only worry about the pain of dying. Don't worry about what happens after, like Socrates had stated in arguments before. And so, in the end, I wanted to break this down to say that necessarily there doesn't have to be a power struggle, nor a God, but in my opinion, those things are true.